One of the major economic decisions taken by the government this year is the placing of Konkola copper mines under provisional liquidation, which effectively kick-started the process of repossessing the mine from the main shareholder, Vedanta PLC. The decision, taken in May this year, received mixed feelings and sparked both resistance and, of course, speculation. While the case is still under arbitration in the courts of law, the rumor mill is still running, with speculation rife that the mine has already been handed over to a preferred buyer while miners remain in suspense. What is the truth behind Konkola copper mines? My guest on Sunday interview this evening is the Minister of Mines, Mr. Richard Msukwa. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Grevazio. Good evening.
Well, the decision by government to take over KCM through liquidation came as a surprise to many Zambians because of the abrupt way it was announced. And many wonder, was this decision carefully thought out? What is the background behind this action that you took as government?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to set the record straight that this was not an abrupt decision. And this was not a knee-jerk decision. This was a well thought out decision arising from the challenges that Konkola Copper Mine has been facing for a number of years. And I think that the employees of KCM and the general populace of the Republic of Zambia know the kind of challenges that KCM has been facing. In fact, KCM has been in public media, both local and international, because of the stress that the company was going through. And as a result of that, let me provide the background. In 2013, government commissioned a technical audit in order to ascertain the challenges that Konkola Copper Mine was going through and see how best issues could be resolved. And it was clear from our technical report, which was actually conducted by independent, eminent people in the industry involving mining engineers, lawyers, accountants, and people from all walks of life. And I'm very delighted to share some of those eminent sons and daughters of Zambia who participated in this very critical technical audit. This technical audit, Grevazio, actually revealed prominently that, number one, KCM was under very serious threat of insolvency. And to that effect, KCM was sitting on total liabilities in excess of over $1.567 billion as of 30th September 2013. And at that very period, KCM exceeded its current asset by $123 million, meaning that KCM could not transact, could not operate viably in terms of paying local contractors and suppliers. In fact, they even started failing to pay workers and any obligation they had in record time. In fact, Grevazio, you will be able to note that actually in September 2013, KCM defaulted on one of its key covenants on Standard Bank loan, where they got a loan in excess of $700 million. The bank, in essence, had a waiver of up to 31st March 2014, beyond which the bank could have appointed a receiver, because the conditions for the waiver were abrogated by Konkola Copper Mine.
Now, yeah. we could say technically KCM was insolvent by 2013.
Technically, it was insolvent, and even to go beyond that, KCM stopped producing by 2014. They have been relying on materials coming from other jurisdictions, and their own production was neither here nor there. In fact, at the time government proceeded on the route of liquidation, there were many companies and entities where KCM owed huge sums of money who had a lot of co-options on KCM itself. As you know, most of the debt and loans that were secured by Konkola Copper Mine by Vedanta were secured against the total assets of KCM.
Now, the disclosure, of course, that thing was public when the committee that you appointed to audit the operations of KCM, that was a public announcement. Now, it shocks so many residents that in 2013, the reaction probably was because government was threatened then, because KCM had announced they were going to retrench 1,500 plus workers. And after that, government went to bed, it seems, until 2019.
No, we didn't. Government never went to bed. You know, Grevazio, government always move like a tortoise, but makes significant marks on the ground. When this report was generated and presented to government, government agreed with Konkola Copper Mine to start a strategic plan to save KCM. As you know, KCM is one of the biggest mining operations in Zambia, and so government was very careful to ensure that an improvement plan was hatched where KCM had to be restructured in a way that was going to be viable. And to that effect, this business improvement plan that was agreed with government, with KCM, Vedanta made several pledges in terms of how they were going to inject fresh capital in the operation. And sadly, this business improvement plan, which was pledged by Vedanta and the Konkola Copper Mine, has never taken off. And to that effect, I want to state that in the process of government being open and transparent and ensuring that we continue to run and operate the mining industry under private-driven initiatives by our investors, government provided a lot of chance for KCM to reform itself. Unfortunately, they did not. To that
was it a chance to reform?
Yes, it was.
Government has never maybe been so interested in mining. You've left it to the private hands. KCM, basically, as you state, has never performed, never delivered on its pledges, and government was busy trying to revive them, busy trying to revive a private entity. Weren't the conditions for liquidation ripe at 2013? Why now?
The word interested is not correct. Government has always been interested in the mining sector. And
maybe taken a laissez-faire approach?
Not a laissez-faire approach. This is a serious government, and we are talking about a national asset. You will be interested to know that the mining industry contributes in excess of over 70% of Zambia's government earnings. And so we are seriously interested about the mining industry, because without the mining industry, we are nowhere. In fact, even when we endeavor to ensure that we look at other sources of government revenue, the mining industry will continue to be one of our key issues. And mining is our comparative advantage as a country, so we cannot do without it. So we are extremely interested. And certainly, we cannot approach it in a laissez-faire manner. What has happened is that as a government from 2013, we have been following the law, which many people are now accusing us that we have not followed with this process of liquidation. In fact, without us following the law, we could have done it in 2013, because the law provided that there are steps which we are supposed to undertake before we can cancel a license or before we can actually put it under liquidation. And that's what we have been doing. You will be interested to know that, in fact, from 2013 to date, we issued Konkola Copper Mine with 2 default notices, meaning that outright we are supposed to have cancelled the license in 2016. We are supposed to have cancelled the license in 2018. But government gave this foreign investor an opportunity to remedy its challenges which they were facing at the mine, and unfortunately, they have failed.
Here's another question. Was liquidation the best way of taking over?
Yes, in the circumstance that government finds itself in, and the issues surrounding Konkola Copper Mine, there are many schools of thoughts that have come up with a lot of ideas. You know,
there's a proposal for receivership. There's a proposal that you should have done a rescue plan.
Rescue plan,
which was probably going to protect the workers more.
All these good and intellectual propositions have come across, but Grevazio, I'll tell you, I have already indicated to you that in fact Standard Chartered Bank had options to ensure that they commenced receivership on the Konkola Copper Mine, and that government immediately had to stop the bleeding. What we have done is to stop the bleeding at KCM and ensure that the viability of the operation is guaranteed. What you've done is to go ahead of Standard Chartered? What we have done is actually to go ahead of Standard Chartered Bank and several other entities, because if they did, government was not going to have control over KCM, because it was going to be under private entities pursuing KCM. Now, another argument is that, and when you look at the figures on which these entities have been pursuing KCM, really you could have found that our people the workers of Konkola Copper Mine, and our economy was going to be at the mercy of foreign entities and people that are owed. And so what we have done is to move in and negotiate and discuss with these entities who are owed huge sums of money and see how best we can bridge the gap and make a commitment to liquidate off this indebtedness.
You're undertaking a very different type of liquidation, quite a unique one, because going by the book, when a company goes into liquidation, its assets are sold and the money raised is paid to creditors. The business closes down and its name gets removed from the register. Isn't that what liquidation is all about?
This liquidation that we are undertaking at Konkola Copper Mine, I know that most of the people are very used to these processes where you sell all the assets and pay off the debtors and stuff like that. We are not doing that. What we want is Konkola Copper Mine is too big to fail. It's a national asset, and our resolve is to ensure that the company continues to operate, and I'm glad that the liquidator is just doing that. For the first time, after many years, KCM are able now to run and operate the smelter, and we have now the commodities which we are able to trade, which actually has motivated the workers. What we are now doing is to ensure that we mobilize resources, to ensure that we can start operations and produce on concentrates which should go in our mills instead of relying on third parties. That's what we are doing, and this process is meant to ensure that while we are operating, a credible investor who should be identified in an open and transparent manner should be able to take up the operation. As you know, government is not in the business of running businesses, and government will continue to ensure that the mining sector is run and driven by the private sector. This includes both foreign and local.
So your liquidation was a smart way of nationalizing KCM and then probably sell it again to another investor?
Not at all. This is not a nationalization process. As you know, if we were nationalizing, we are a board government. We would have just said we are nationalizing. And I have heard that being postulated both local and in international press, that this is a form of nationalization. Not at all. If we were on that route, we could have just said we are nationalizing. We are not nationalizing. We continue to run and operate the mining industry on the premise of private-driven initiatives. And in so doing, we will follow the extent of the law. What we are dealing with at KCM is that we are dealing with a company that has broken the law. And I'm surprised that in the quest for government to protect its people, to protect its economy from a company that has broken the condition of grant of the license, no one seems to understand that part. For many months on end, many citizens, both local and international, have been calling on the government of the Republic of Zambia to decisively deal with the issue of Konkola Copper Mine. That's what we are doing. We want to guarantee our jobs. We want to guarantee the economy. We want this is a huge national asset which sits in excess of over 509 million tons of ore reserve, which is underutilized. If you look at Grevasio, if you look at some of the reasons why we moved in, it's failure by KCM to operationalize the KDMB project in Chirabombwe, which is behind by 7 to 10 years. This is supposed to be the bedrock of their primary resource of the ore. This project is behind by 7 to 10 years.
I thought you did refuse when I said probably government went to sleep. What kind of government allows such a lapse? That's one of the major benchmarks under which KCM got that mine.
Thank you very much, Grevasio. And I want to state that government has not gone to sleep. Government is operating. It's a mill that grinds slowly. And at this time when we have grinded, you are able to see the effects because there is an uproar in terms of where we have milled. What is in place, Grevasio, is that, in fact, to make it worse, KCM pledged to bring, Vedanta pledged to bring $357 million in the operation. They did not. What Vedanta and KCM have been doing is all the processing plants and facilities that you see have been developed on the internally generated resources.
Under your watch? Under your watch as government? Which has
stifled the operations. Grevazio, you can see under the watch of government, but you know that KCM was taken over in 2004. And these statistics I'm giving you stems from that platform. We only came into government in 2011. In any case, we are responsible for everything. And that's why we are making decisions to ensure that the lapse which was generated for a long time must be corrected.
Now, is there a chance that KCM will operate profitably again after this process that you are going to do?
Definitely. Grevazio, you will be interested to know that KCM sits on huge resources. First of all, I'm talking about the non-reserves that are in excess of over 509 million tons. And we have areas where we need to ensure that the reserves are exploited further. This is in terms of the Konkola ore body, the Nchanga, both the underground and the upper ore body. We have huge potential in terms of the resources, and so the operations at KCM is viable. What has necessitated this unfortunate circumstance is because of the poor management structure by the investor, and government is dealing with the investor that has broken the law. Now, to ensure that we correct this mess.
How has this action taken by government impacted on the country as a major attraction for FDI, foreign direct investment? I know that in certain international media, the picture painted is that you want to use proceeds from KCM to pay back debt.
Thank you, Grevazio, and I'm glad you have asked that question. First of all, as a government, I think that our role is to ensure that we provide leadership. And in this scenario where an investor of this magnitude has failed, government has to provide leadership. There is no correlation between the debt and the operations at KCM. I have told you the reasons why we moved in terms of putting Konkola Copper Mine under liquidation. Certainly there is no issue of debt. And as Minister of Mines, I am not aware of the debt of government related to the issues at KCM. And in any case, the debt of government is within manageable levels in terms of structure to pay and manage our economy. And I think that the Ministry of Finance is on top of things in relationship to that effect. So there is really no connection whatsoever. What we are dealing with is an issue of ensuring that KCM becomes sustainable. People and employees are guaranteed. As you know, Konkola Copper Mine started certain schemes that were against even natural justice. For instance, they started the process of outsourcing, where all key issues in terms of their production were in the hands of contractors, to a level that even the machinery and the equipment were all in the hands of contractors. And KCM were merely speculators, to an extent that if an operation, a contractor has a challenge and they put down their operation, the entire operation suffered, because this mode of operation where you as a major shareholder are mere spectators and relying on contractors to run and manage your operation is a matter that has grounded KCM.
Now, we've been down this route before, and everyone remembers, particularly yourself, I think you should remember, that we had Ramcos, and you know that Luansha, after the liquidation of Ramcos, has never been the same. What's different from this one?
What's different from this process, which has started by government from the Ramcos receivership, is that this process is a process that is meant to ensure that KCM is revitalized. In short, what government has identified as the biggest challenge is that Vedanta has not brought in the capital injection in the operations, which has grounded this entire operation to a halt. And some of the business transactions that Vedanta have been doing, which are detrimental to the operations of KCM, is that, for instance, in 2011, Vedanta loaned KCM $500 million, which was only repaid within the following year in 2011, instead of being paid in October 2012. Clearly, you could see that the premature recall of this loan caused a huge strain in terms of KCM operations. In short, Vedanta has no risk whatsoever in terms of their operations. Anything they put in, they got it.
You've been blamed as government of also stressing the mine by failing to pay VAT refunds and having a tax regime that is not favorable to the mining sector.
No, not
Have you taken those things?
No, not at all, Grevasio. As you know, Konkola Copper Mine and several other mining entities have been claiming VAT. And where they have provided documents, legitimate and audited documents, they have got the refund. Grevasio, what can you put across where you have a mining entity that has sold copper and they don't have receipts of where they sold copper? This is not selling, with due respect to our colleagues and friends who trade in the open market. This is not selling like tomatoes. This is not selling groundnuts. Really, you are selling copper, you can't have receipts. So where we have no receipts, which need to be audited, that's where there is a challenge. In fact, you will be interested to know that the claims by KCM weighs far less in terms of the money that KCM owes ZRI, in excess of over 3.1 billion, which they owe. And they are claiming 1.4. On the 1.4, 900 has been audited, and we have no queries about that, and they are being paid as and when it falls due. But really, they are at the back end. They owe government 3.1. Simple mathematics, Grevasio. Who owns who from these statistics?
Was there a chance, an opportunity that Vedanta could be given an opportunity to resuscitate the mine?
Grevasio.
Could they have managed that?
Grevasio.
Was that an option?
Grevasio, you have told me from 2013 that you have been sleeping. What chance are you looking at? That's the chance we provided for them. It cannot go on in perpetuity. Government has provided enough chance for KCM and Vedanta to redeem themselves. And clearly they have failed. We have a responsibility as a government to ensure that we make decisions. And this time around, we have made this decision. And we are not going back. You know, we are not going back on this decision. This is not drama. This is a decision that we have carefully hatched. And to allay the fears from certain sections of our society that think that this was just a decision that was made without a clear thought. This was a well thought out, clear decisions. Vedanta have been engaged at the level of the chairman. By His Excellency, the President, he actually went out of his way to ensure that, you know, discussions in order to revive these operations was undertaken. 3-4 different occasions, and the serious promises made to ensure that the company is kept afloat. That has not been forthcoming. And clearly, as a government, where we stand is that Vedanta has failed. And in fact, we are even surprised that they are even postulating both in international and local media about how they have invested, how they have been good to the people of Chingola and Chirilabombwe. Grevasio, if you want to see the failures of Vedanta, you don't have to be on social media. You have to go to Chirilabombwe and Chingola. You will see that it's an operation that is breeding heavily from lack of recapitalization from Vedanta.
Now, you need to explain how government has started receiving offers and is about to start negotiations when with buyers when this matter is before the courts of law.
Grevasio,
isn't that total disregard for the law?
Grevasio, you know,
isn't that an illegality in itself?
You and me know, Grevasio, from our traditional cousins, members, they always say, you know, ifikala chimbui, tefikala inama ikata. Is that too advanced for you?
Maybe for the viewer?
No, for the viewers, they know. What we
You're
are saying,
assuming everyone understands.
What we are saying, Grevasio, is that you know, we cannot start such a huge undertaking of a process to start liquidating, and then we fold our arms and start waiting for you know, the results to be completely finished. In the background,
you should be seen to respect the courts.
We do. We do. In fact, we do respect the court of very seriously. As you know, this is a government of laws. And you will be interested to know that we sit on an exposure, Grevasio, of eminent lawyers across government departments and managed by the Attorney General. And so we would not do illegality. What we are doing in the background is to ensure that as the company is running, as the court processes are going on, both local and international, we also have a duty to ensure that we begin to look at a strategic partner to take over Konkola Copper Mine. And I mean, we could not sit on a plan without any plan. We have a plan, and the plan we have is to ensure that a strategic partner is identified who will take over Konkola Copper Mine. That we are very resolved in our mind, and that's why you have seen that we are moving in that direction. If we didn't respect the law, we could have moved in a long time, because we have a lot of challenges in terms of ensuring that the mine is operational. It's because we respect the law. That's why we are working in the background. In
moving the way you have done, you're probably giving an indication that you're ready to pay damages and compensation in case Vedanta won the case.
As I have indicated earlier, first of all, Grevasio, you must know that the Zambian government and the people of Zambia are bigger than other entities out there. And what you also need to know is that the liabilities of KCM as we speak sits in excess of over $123 million. And we will respect the law and see what the court processes are going to bring out. But we know that we have a firm, strong case against Vedanta. And this case we can win anywhere, in any jurisdiction, because this is the case for the people of Zambia. Clearly you can see that Zambians people have been shortchanged. How else can you explain a company of an international prowess can have $357 million committed into injecting in the company as a premise of getting the operation, and they have not brought this? These are the people that are being heraldized? No. Certainly Zambia deserves better.
Are you listening to KCM when they say they've invested and they would want their money back if at all you were taking the mine?
Certainly, they should put their numbers on the table.
Are you listening to them? Have you seen the numbers
they should put numbers on the table, and the numbers should match in terms of the investment portfolio. Remember, Grevasio, I have told you that our decision is premised on the technical audit which we did. The technical audit indicates that, in fact, the numbers and the investment portfolio which they are talking about are monies that were generated within our operation. Isn't that code 50? What do you want to call it? This is money for the Zambians. And as a government, we have a duty to ensure that we protect the interest of Zambians. We were made to understand huge resources will be pumped in the operation. This never came through, and Vedanta has not refused. Vedanta has not argued on the report of the technical audit that, in fact, they did not bring $397 million as pledged for investment. They have not refuted that. What they did is, in fact, to look at the resources that were left by ZCCM and started operating, and sold some of those things to reinvest in the infrastructure that they have put up. Grevasio, this technical audit was carried by eminent sons of Zambia. Dr. Sister Smulenga, Mr. Pius Mambo, Mr. Albano Mutati, Mr. David Simbaya, Dr. Peter Chireshe, that's University of Zambia, CBU, Mr. Chanda, Dr. Fortune Kamuchi, Mr. Kasanda. Mr. Obet Skazwe, this is the University of Zambia, Mr. Robert Banda from ZDA, and Francis Temba, one of the mining experts, Mr. Lumamba from the ministry. This is a team of well-experienced and qualified Zambians who undertook this audit. And it gave us...
After the audit, there was a business plan, and
yes,
a business revival plan,
yes,
submitted by KCM. Why did it fail? Have you interrogated why that plan failed?
There was no commitment in terms of putting fresh capital injection from Vedanta, and that's why it failed.
Now let's look at, granted this process looks upside down somehow, somewhere. Where are we going with KCM liquidation?
Where we are going with...
Where are we?
Where are we
going?
Where we are with KCM liquidation is that, first of all, among our strategic plan as a government was to ensure that Konkola Copper Mine continues to operate, because when we took over, we actually found everything was virtually at a standstill. And if you interrogate our colleagues at KCM, especially the employees, they will tell you that everything was virtually at a standstill. And even as we speak, there are many operations which are actually posting nothing. They are not doing anything except they are just in hydrogen. In fact, key issues where we are supposed to be getting the ore are actually in hiding. What we did as government is that, well, first of all, let's ensure that the operations start to run. And you'll be interested to know that there were several housekeeping issues that were actually non-functional at Konkola Copper Mine. What we have done through the liquidator is that we have brought to life all these facets that can spur production. And as we speak, many contractors and suppliers that were supposed to bring in material for KCM had literally stopped. We have opened discussions, and we have now started receiving materials in order for us to ensure that the smelter continues running. And the idea is that, number one, we continue to look after the workers in this critical process. And also, we pay all outstanding contractors and suppliers slowly as the operation is going on. These are resources that have been owed to contractors and suppliers, some of them in excess of over 1 year, 2 years, and so on. So what we have done is to prioritize and see how best we can start, slowly liquidating, dismantling this indebtedness while we are looking for a strategic partner. Because, this is a national asset. If we did not move in, the blame was going to come at the head of government. And so we have to move in. We have stopped the bleeding. And what we have said is that we have a lot of Zambians, out there who have a lot of brilliant ideas on how they tell us what we have done, what we are not supposed to do. Instead of postulating in the press and so on, we are available for advice and see how best we can move in order to move.
Isn't your statement too good to be true? Stopping the bleeding in just 2 months? Is that simple?
Yeah, Grevazu, you have to see...
It's just like that, and KCM could have done that. I mean, if it was that simple.
And that's why we are surprised. That's why we are surprised, because that's what we have done. And it's working. In fact, Grevazu, if you walked through with me at KCM with the liquidator, you will be amazed how the gentleman is energized, because we have just put in a mechanism to ensure that the operation is revived. Because I will tell you, Grevazu, we have a team of highly competent management and the workers that are able to run and operate the operations. And they have just been failing as a result of the poor corporate governance of Vedanta.
How are you protecting the workers? I mean, in terms of salaries, we've heard rumors and stories that government is now struggling to pay the salaries.
No, not at all. Those are, again, social media stories. As you are aware, first of all, among the issues that necessitated our takeover is that KCM itself started failing to pay salaries for the workers, especially the senior staff category. You actually note that KCM for a long time, if you looked at their books, you'll be very sad, because they have just been surviving on overdrafts. That's why if you talk about the investment portfolio that they are actually talking about in the international press, it doesn't add up. What we are doing is that we are mobilizing resources to ensure that the workers, in fact, you must know that I have very strict instructions from His Excellency the President to ensure that our workers must not be subjected to any social challenges as a result of this process. And to that effect, we have discussed with our liquidator that our workers are priority. So we are mobilizing resources, and with the start of smelter, we think that the resources that are generated, we should be able to, at the right time, pay off our workers, and also ensure that slowly we are liquidating the indebtedness as we mobilize resources to get the operations in other areas kick-started.
Looking at it from the other side, the fact that you've been able to revive the mine in a very short period means you're talking of a very viable institution. It
is. KCM is extremely viable. The resource on which we sit, both at Nchanga, Konkola, are huge. And including other associated operations such as Nkana and Nampundwe are huge and viable. And that is why government would like to ensure that this operations is running smoothly. And we are determined to ensure that in record time we find a strategic partner who will be able to supplement what government is doing. And look, Grevazio, what I expect Zambians to be engaged in instead of, you know, theoretically posturing about the legalities and so on, which are good because, as you know, we are a government anchored on the rule of law. It is to ensure that Zambians must be able to look at the 79% that Vedanta has and say, look, what is it that Zambians can do? Can we have a share of this 79%? In short, I expect Zambians from all walks of life to mobilize resources as a consortium and begin to look at an opportunity. You
have not spoken to them on those lines. They're sitting and waiting, listening to you.
Grevazio, what you are saying, in fact, is what Zambians, eminent business Zambians were telling me in Kitwe, that they are waiting for government to invite them to invest in KCM. Perhaps if that's what they are waiting for, let me use this opportunity to invite Zambians across the Republic of Zambia and beyond to see how best they can participate in this process as a solution.
How much are you spending, for instance? Would you know how much you're spending to run KCM from the government coffers? Isn't that a drain on government?
We are not spending any resources from government coffers. What I have told you, Grevazio, is that the entire business platform at KCM had collapsed. What we have done is to start up the business at KCM, and we are mobilizing resources from the KCM platform and other entities, and from certainly not government. No, ZCCMIH, as you know, is got interest. They are shareholders. They started the case. And this is, Grevazio, what makes the distinction about this liquidation. This is a liquidation that was triggered by a minority shareholder.
Which is strange, isn't it?
No, it's not strange. It was triggered by a minority shareholder. It doesn't mean that if you are a minority shareholder, you have no say. No, the minority shareholder triggered this process because the minority shareholder believed that the majority shareholder was doing wrong things. And because it is a member's liquidation, Grevazio, that's why we are not selling assets. This is a member's liquidation. A member has expressed that where we are going with this majority shareholder, it doesn't inspire confidence. And that's why we are keeping the operation afloat in order to ensure that we find a strategic partner to run the operations. So you don't expect us to start cutting things in the plant in order to sell. No, we want to ensure that it continues to be a going concern and continues to operate.
Now let's look at your decision to appoint a negotiating team. And apart from Kantanshi MP Anton Mumba, who else is on this team?
What
Zambians deserve to know.
What we have done is that first and foremost, the client call by Zambians and the people of all walks of life is to ensure that this process is transparent. It's open. Anyone can look through, and that it should be. It's a process that government is determined to ensure should not smell any form of corruption whatsoever by any entity. And in responding to the information coming from the public out there, government, through His Excellency the President, decided to expand the team in order to include Kantanshi MP, and I'm sure with 3-4 more members of Parliament, in order just to provide a broad spectrum in terms of how we are looking at these things and be accountable to our Zambian population. And this process will not in any way compromise the efficacy of ensuring that it is in an open and transparent manner. It is meant actually to ensure that this process is open and transparent, and that this process should not have any political connotation. But you've put members of Parliament on the negotiating team. Then you'd not want it to be political? No, no, not at all. What we are just trying to provide is to have independent oversight from our colleagues from Parliament, because
what do they bring to the table?
Oh yes,
you're picking.
Most of the MPs being brought to the table, first of all, some of the people that are directly involved in the operations where these mining entities operate, and secondly, it is the expertise in terms of some of the issues that are at play. So,
and of course, there must be pro-ruling government, pro-ruling party.
Not at all. Kantanshi Member of Parliament is independent. I'm sure you know that, Gravas.
Do we have opposition members of Parliament?
If there are opposition members of Parliament that will be co-opted in the committee, is a matter that will be too glad at. What I'm not just sure is if there are political parties are going to allow them. But His Excellency the President is open to ensure that a cross-section of members of Parliament are involved in order to enhance transparency and accountability over this most important critical asset of our country.
We have a list of buyers that you've lined up, and are you able to share that list?
Yes, Grevasio, but also upfront to state that, first of all, there is no sale that has taken place eminently. Once the entire processes, especially after the court processes in terms of liquidation are concluded, and the other processes start, government will be able to share clearly with the nation in terms of who the buyers are, what processes have gone through. In fact, what government is doing with the negotiating team is to ensure that we have a structure of the conditions of what we would like to see in an investor that is taking over Konkola Copper Mine. As we sit, we have a total of 9 international companies that have expressed interest, and these are from Russia, Canada, Australia, Turkey, and China. You will be interested to know that word has been going around that, in fact, the company has been sold to China non-ferrous CNMC. Actually, there are 3 different Chinese companies that are bidding. You have Jingchuan, you have Zhonghui International Limited, and CNMC. So basically, those are informations which are not correct, and we can only think that they were meant to bring this process down. Where we are is that companies that have expressed interest, because we are alive to the court processes that are going through, companies that have expressed interest, have been having a face value of the company. And secondly, the second process is that they are supposed to do due diligence. And you'll be interested to know that all these companies who will be allowed to go to the mine have signed the non-disclosure agreements in terms of how we proceed going forward.
Maybe the concern was that Chinese companies had gotten to KCM first.
Not
than
at
any
all.
other interested bidder.
Not at all. In fact, the first company that went to KCM is a Turkish company.
There's the fact that after the Chinese company, probably CNMC, went there, it leaked. Does it show you which way Zambians want you to go?
No. This is not supposed to be, Grevasio, a private and secret arrangement. No, we want anyone who is interested, who have expressed interest, to be, subjected to our people on the ground out there. And people have a right to make the comments in terms of what kind of a company must be able to take over. You see, as a government, we cannot prescribe what company should express interest.
You have a profile of a company you're looking for. What do you want the company to achieve? Yes,
definitely. Having gone through these challenges with Vedanta, we have a profile of, as a government, of what kind of a company must be able to take over. First and foremost, on our profile, top on the list, is a company that has a good corporate image about how they run and operate their operations. This company should be able to demonstrate of how they are able to mobilize resources to inject in the company, and they should be able to, as a higher premium, they should be able to demonstrate on how they look after their employees as a matter of priority. And these are some of the key issues that we are looking in a broad spectrum in terms of who takes over KCM. We would like a company that must operationalize the KDMP project in Chirabombe almost immediately. We want a company that should be able to put resources in the Nchanga upper ore body and underground operations, including associated operations, so as to immediately start the operations so that the mine is sustainable by itself. So we are looking at a wide range of issues, and the key among these issues is also to ensure that we get a company that should be able to ensure that the indebtedness owed to contractors and suppliers are resolved almost immediately.
How many companies have been to KCM? Out of those you've listed, all of them have been?
Yes.
Is that what gives you confidence that you're going to conclude the negotiations before the end of the month?
What gives us the confidence that we should be able to find a serious strategic partner to run and operate KCM is the viability of the mine, and that it was poorly managed. That's why we have found ourselves in this state of affairs. It's the viability of the mine in terms of where we sit on the ore reserves. And these companies that are coming with teams of technical experts who are actually able to see where the fortunes of our country lies, and that's what gives us the confidence.
And our weakness has been in having weak teams to negotiate the deals.
Yeah.
Are you sure this time around you've put in place a strong team?
You are very right, and I want to state that in the past we have had instances where we have been short-changed, and this is where we have found ourselves in this position. I don't want to blame the past. I want to take responsibility about what is happening currently, that government is going to structure a well-experienced and well-versed team which should cover areas of expertise. In short, our negotiating team should have experts in terms of mining engineers, metallurgists, geologists, mineral economists, and lawyers, accountants, stakeholders, that is trade unions, and you'll be interested to know, Grevasio, that this process that we have been undertaking with the strategic partners to take over, trade unions are represented, and we expect that our colleagues from the trade unions will be able to pass on the message to the employees in terms of how best this process is going. So, in short, what we are trying to do this time around as a government is to ensure that we have a multi-sectoral approach in terms of the strategic negotiating team, which must be able to take into account of all the various issues. And you know that the negotiating team doesn't involve ministers. It involves technocrats. It involves independent people, firms that have well-vested background in terms of these transactions.
Yeah. Now, I want you to address this concern by Zambians. They think giving the mine to a Chinese firm is a foregone conclusion, considering that there have been international reports that CNMC has already got the deal. That's one of them. The other concern is that government owes China a tune of $3 billion. And would you be able to resist a silent push by the Chinese government to have one of
the
own
process
do you have the capacity as government? And of course, coincidentally, probably we've heard China cancel loans for Zambia. Is that
there is no
is that a maneuver to try and coerce you?
There is absolutely no relationship, and you must be confident that government will not be coerced into any ultra motives which are meant to disadvantage Zambians. This process will be done in an open and transparent manner, and in doing so, we will not sit at the fence to discourage other entities. In short, for instance, China must not be disadvantaged as a result of these perceived perceptions. What we want as a government is an entity that must be able to revive the operations at KCM. We are not looking at the nationality or color or anything of that sort. What we are looking for is a company, is an institution that should be able to mirror into our standard which we have put across, and certainly we will not fall prey to such kind of maneuvers. I can tell you confidently that as we sit, the mine has not been sold to any entity, and China included. So the process hasn't even started. The bid documents have just been approved by the legal affairs team. So really, where we are sitting is that we haven't even started the entire process in short. But what we need is a company that has the capacity to run and operate KCM. And any company that will be chosen is amenable to our conditions. They should be able to ensure that they fit in the structure of government. In fact, what is sad is that we have very good laws that have just not been followed. And you can see that that is where government now has started to ensure that ailing companies which break the law, like Konkola Copper Mine through Vedanta, are divorced. Now, what is wrong in us doing the right thing?
People get suspicious when you take long. People probably get suspicious of
you want the status quo to continue, where people have been subjected to uncertainty, where the operation has grounded to a halt. If you went underground, you will be shocked to see that what we are just doing is, hydring, maintaining, and no production at all. And yet we have an investor that is postulating in the international press that they have invested huge sums of money. Where?
Let me move you away from KCM. Just one question that probably may beg for your answer. Gold deposits in Zambia and those being mined and probably the deposits being abused by individuals. Is government moving in to try and regularize this?
Thank you, Grevasio. As a government and ministry, I must state that we have started a serious process of diversifying within the mineral sector. Instead of concentrating on copper, we have now put a higher premium on other minerals such as manganese, gold, nickel, so as to ensure that we extend our breadbasket. So what government has done is that we have huge deposits of gold across the Republic of Zambia, and prominently in Central Province, Eastern Province, Northwestern Province, Lusaka Province, basically across the Republic of Zambia. What we have done is that for a long time, these gold deposits have been exploited by illegal miners. We have cancelled all idle licenses that have attracted illegal operations, and we are now trying to organize that most of these gold deposits, especially in Eastern Province, we get cooperatives. Our people must be able to make cooperatives, and when they make cooperatives, these are the cooperatives that will be licensed in order to exploit mainly the alluvial gold in Eastern Province. And what we have done is that through ZCCMIH, ZCCMIH is our investment vehicle. We are procuring a smelting facility which will be placed in Vubwi and Rufunsa, so that all these entities must be able to bring their products to these entities for processing. And in the process, we envisage that government will get its share, the people will get its share, and we think that this is a platform where we are going to create employment. We are doing the same with manganese. There has been a lot of illegal exploitation of manganese, especially by foreigners in Wapra province, Central province. Government is moving in to ensure that we mop up and clean up so that, you know, these resources should benefit our people. I am surprised that, you know, the intellectual discourse in Zambia is that people are even challenging why we are agitating that Zambians should benefit. We have no apology for that. Zambians have a right to our mineral resources and they must be primary beneficiaries.
Minister, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you, Grevasio.
That's all we have for you this evening. That was the Minister of Mines, Mr. Richard Musuka, looking at the sale of the liquidation of Konkola copper mines and other issues pertaining to the mining sector in the country. We'll be back next week. Same time, pleasant viewing.